Okay, well, I'm so excited that everybody's here today, and we're doing our very first member spotlight, which is going to be very, very exciting. So let me get my questions over here. And today we're going to be talking with the wonderful Susan Haworth. She is one of the original members of our Berkeley DTP chapter. And so we're just going to have a little conversation here today with Susan to learn more about what she does and what that looks like. So, Susan, tell us a little bit about what you do as a step parent coach.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Michelle. This is a great opportunity. I love it. And to be first, I'm really honored. So thanks. Yeah, I work with step parents. I coach them and counsel them through the really choppy waters. For those of you that don't know about step families, we have the dubious distinction of having a 70% divorce rate and lots higher than first families. And sometimes in divorces, there are step families forming in the wings. And they are, in 90% of the cases, step families are the result of divorce, 10% the result of death. So divorce is very much a part of the step family experience. So what I do is I help with that, and I work with individuals. I have stepmom support groups, and I do a lot of couples work because we can't solve relationship problems by ourselves.
Thank you. So, tell us more about the outcomes that your clients get by working with you.
Yeah, thanks. First and foremost, I think what I help people do is own their fantasies. Their unrealistic expectations about what life is going to look like in a step family, because most of us enter it with our eyes wide shut. And we don't have a playbook for how step families operate. We look at them through a first family lens, which is very unhealthy and unhelpful. So I help them recognize what their fantasies are and their unrealistic expectations of what life is going to look like. I have them own that. Also, for stepmoms, I help them define their role, which is very ambiguous. And I call it staying in their own lane. Find their stepmom lane and stay in it. When stepmoms cross over into the biological mom lane, that's when trouble happens. For the dads, and most often I work with divorced dads and not stepdads, which is another issue that we can talk about maybe later. But I help them understand that giving their job, relinquishing their job as parent to the stepmom is not helpful. It doesn't work. And so I help them understand that a stepmom is not a biological mom, and they can't just plug her in and play. And I help them understand that their allegiances are to their primary partner, their new partner, not to their ex. Stepdads they're notorious for being torn between two, trying to keep everybody happy, and as a result, keeping no one happy. So that's one of my objectives too. And boundaries. Boundaries are a big issue for step families. First families are given autonomy and privacy, not so much for second families. So the boundaries with their exes and with their extended family and protecting their primary relationship, that is the big goal. So I also help them fight in clean ways and problem solve. And those are the primary objectives. It's a lot, but that's what we're shooting for.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. And so, what are some of the obvious and maybe not so obvious payoffs of the work that they're doing with you? How does that start to shift things in their daily life experience with their families?
Yeah. What my goal is to help them build an equitable and sustainable relationship because, hopefully those kids are going to get launched out of the house and then you're left with your partner. And so you have to start building that foundation. And what we're going for in a step family is we're going for mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. And all the rest is gravy. So I do not, Michelle, I know you know this, I do not use the term blended because it sets up very unrealistic expectations for, I don't even know what it means, frankly, but for what a step family looks like. But they do need mutual respect is right up there.
Wonderful. And what brought you to this work? How did you end up in this very particular niche?
Yeah, people are always saying to me, I don't know anybody like you. Well, of course, I know lots of people who do what I do. And that's kind of the same with step families where, step parents are nowhere and everywhere. We don't congregate. But 28 years ago, I became a stepmom. And up until that point, I thought I was a pretty successful person. So it kind of brought me to my knees, big hit to my self-esteem, and I didn't have any resources. I looked, and 28 years ago, there weren't very many of them. And I thankfully had some friends who helped me, who were, to this day, I thank them. But I knew that there was a need for support for stepmoms and for step parents. And so I tucked it away and waited until the time was right for me to do private practice and to focus on this niche.
Wonderful. And so give us a sense of how clients work with you.
So I take very much a cognitive behavioral approach. So I help clients look at their cognitions and look at their beliefs and their limiting beliefs and then make behavioral changes. I write for Stepmom magazine. I have a column called the Stepmom Whisperer. It's an advice column. And many of my clients find me through the magazine, but some just Google step parent support, step parent counselors. And very often the woman, I know this is shocking, very often the woman is the first one to contact me. Not always. I actually have some private clients who are divorced dads and whose partners don't work with me. But mostly it's the stepmoms, and then I work with her. But I also encourage all of my clients to fold in their partners. And if they're reluctant to work on this issue, that doesn't portend well. That's not a good sign. But we do what we can, So I do a lot of couples work. And then I also have some groups. I have a free open group, public group for stepmoms. And then I have 2 private groups for my clients because support is really important. One of the defining characteristics of a stepmom is she feels alone, isolated, very lonely. So I'm trying to plug that gap.
Wonderful. And so where can folks find out more about the work you do or the groups that you offer?
Well, pretty much everything's on my website, and my website is cambioscoaching.com, and cambios is a Spanish word for changes. So I've got my newsletters up there. I've got my services up there. And also I want to put in a little plug for Stepmom magazine. If you know any stepmoms, it's a great resource. It started 15 years ago. I wish that I had that, but it was a little late for me. But it's a great resource for anyone who is struggling, and most of us are.
Wonderful. And then what's one phrase that we can listen for great referrals to give to you, my dear?
Well, as I said, we're everywhere, we're nowhere, and we don't talk about it in public. So if you will indulge me, Michelle, I'd like to just share a story that is quick. The publisher of Stepmom Magazine is Brenda. She's a wonderful person. And she told me this story some time ago. She was out to dinner shortly after she had started publishing her magazine, and with another couple. And the couple had just recently formed a step family. They were in their process. And so Brenda said to them at dinner, "So how is it going?" And the man, the divorced dad, answered, "Great." And she noticed when he said, "We're doing fabulous," the woman put her head down like that. And so when there was a little break in the conversation, Brenda asked her, "Are things going really well? Are they really going well?" And she said, "Actually not." So that's what we can say to people. So how are you really? And, people are reluctant to talk about it. I think we're all reluctant to talk about our private issues, but even more so for second families, because there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame around divorce still. And there's a lot of shame around not doing this role right. So we can just not make assumptions that everybody's okay.
Thank you, my dear. That is so helpful. It really, really is, especially in the divorce realm, to know that it's okay not to be okay, right? And there's no shame in going through the process, and creating safe spaces for people to do that is, I think, what we're all here about, right?
It is.
So thank you,
Michelle. Thank you so much, everybody.
You're very welcome. Let me